If sex and gender are two different things, and you believe that trans women are in fact females, that's not scientifically possible.
I've made it very clear on my platform when I'm speaking. I've said it before that a trans woman who is not medically transitioned is physically male, but is still a woman. That is logically
But we're not talking about women.
Nobody's
a trans woman.
that.
Okay, so we're gonna use your listen. So we're gonna use your logic. We're gonna say a trans woman is a woman, right? Okay, but listen.
Tina,
but wait, I let you guys speak. Let me speak. Let me speak because I let you guys talk. But wait, I let you talk. But I let you speak. I let you speak, and I did not interrupt you. I let you speak, and I did not interrupt you. So I want to say what I have to say without being interrupted. I feel like that's only fair. The same thing that goes for when a trans woman transitions, right? A trans woman is a woman. I grant you that, right? But biologically, they are still male and they will always be male. There is no way to change your chromosomes, your DNA into the opposite sex. That's just not scientifically possible yet. It may in the future, it may happen, it may not. But as of right now, it's not possible. And that's just a fact that you go against, because when trans women transition into being a woman, they have to change their documents. So their ID, their passport, and their health insurance card, important documents like that, they have to switch it to female, which in fact, that's wrong because technically they're not biologically female.
Okay, let me answer to you.
That's not wrong. So,
sorry to interrupt. Let me answer to you on that one. It's, first of all, gender is not binary, not even biologically. There's not such thing as only XY and XX chromosomes, because actually there exists intersex people, and they are really common actually. So that just like debunks everything that you just said. Like, and also a truth is that even if it was scientifically possible to make, let's say, a trans woman able to get pregnant and do things that you describe as something that are only correlated to being a woman, the truth is that transphobic people will still be like that, because they will still be by that same narrative. That wouldn't change anything, really.
Okay, but you're bringing up intersex people as if that's a sexuality, and it's not a sexuality, nor is it a gender. Intersex is something that happens when the baby is developing, something goes wrong. It's not supposed to happen, but it does. So intersex...
It's literally just a variation of human biological traits. It's just a variation.
Yeah, but we know that it's not supposed to happen.
Actually, intersex people, you can look it up, are as common...
Just like with chromosomes, you brought up chromosomes. Majority speaking, males are XY and females are XX, right? Now, there are variation of the sex chromosomes like XXY, which is Klinefelter syndrome, which maybe a biological male can develop breast or a high-pitched voice like a female. You can
be XXY and also be biologically
those
female.
Are birth defects. That has something to do with going on in the womb. That's a birth defect. That's not supposed to happen, but it does.
No,
but biologically,
wrong,
they still are male because they have the Y chromosome.
Biology, and you have to understand, that's what I'm saying. You've been taught this in a very specific way, but science is understanding that the way that we used to perceive it is just incorrect. It's not something that's wrong. It's a variation.
I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that it's wrong because it's just like if a person is born with 4 fingers and not 5, it's a deformity. It doesn't make it wrong. It happens, but it's not supposed to. Technically, it's not supposed to happen. We're supposed to be born with 5 fingers.
Actually, Tina, did you know that actually, like, women that are born with vulvas or vaginas, they can happen to have XY chromosomes? Did you know that?
Which would fall under intersex.
No.
There's many forms of intersex.
What I'm trying to tell you with this is that there are people, like women, that are born with the assignated genitals that you will assign to a woman, and their chromosomes can still vary, and they're still women. There are variations to chromosomes. There's no such thing as only being binary. And actually, the binary idea of gender is a colonial idea, if you didn't know.
Okay, but you're bringing up chromosomes as if it has something to do with gender. Wait, no. You just brought up chromosomes. Chromosomes have nothing to do with gender. Gender is a social construct. It has absolutely nothing to do with your chromosomes, right or wrong. Did you not say that? That gender and sex are different.
So why
wait,
A trans woman can't be a woman because she can never change her chromosomes. Like, you literally are the person that made it seem like those were analogous.
But sex has to do with chromosomes. So why are you bringing gender into
your
that?
Sex, yes.
So what is that?
But
What does your chromosomes have to do with gender?
Sex is not binary. Sex is not binary, nor is gender.
So sex doesn't exist, basically, is what you're saying.
It's not that sex doesn't exist. I'm saying that sex is not binary.
Yes.
Tina, do you know what binary means?
There are physical realities.
Do you believe that there's a difference between males and females?
How so?
I think that where we draw the line
in general,
those two is arbitrary, though.
Is there a difference between males and females?
I just said that there is.
Well, no,
I
heard you, Alyssa.
Yes.
I'm Paulina.
I don't understand what you're trying to say. You mean because I don't understand if you're saying it from a transphobe question or not. Like, difference how
Wait,
in the way
I'm sorry.
we
Hold
act.
on. From a what type of question?
You are trying to ask me in the way we act if there are differences, or what do you mean?
In general, is there a difference between male and a female? In general.
There are differences in every type of human being.
But
There
do you
are no
believe that there's a difference
attributions
between
that are
males
directly
and
to being a
females?
woman or directly to being a man, because those are gender stereotypes.
We're not talking about gender. We're not talking about gender. We're talking about sex.
That you do on your life. And another separate thing is your identity.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about sex, which is biologically male or female. Do you believe that there's a difference?
So what you mean actually is genitals. That's what you're asking me, right?
There's more to sex than just your genitals, but specifically speaking, yes, when the woman gives birth, they look at the baby's genitals, and that's how they determine their sex.
Yeah.
But there's more to play in females and males rather than just the genitalia. Like I said, for example, chromosomes.
Yeah, like I said, I've mentioned before on here, there's multiple different categories that we use. So there's phenotype, which is how your body looks. There is karyotype, which is your genetics. There's our hormonal levels. There are secondary sex characteristics, and then they also some biologists, when it comes to factoring for humans, we also factor in like neurological sex or gender as a component to that.
So they are different, is what you're saying.
There's 5 components. There's 5 factors, and we use those to categorize people.
Which would make males and females different from each other.
And also, Tina, if
there are different categories, but as I said before,
Go ahead, Paulina.
Sorry.
There are different categories.
But Tina, if the answer that you're sorry again, if the answer that you're trying to get is like penis in vulvas, that is the answer you're trying to get?
No, that's not what I'm trying. I'm genuinely asking, are males and females different? That's it. Just, are they different? It's like, is the color blue and pink different? Yes or no?
Then, what's your question?
We're going to move forward from that because obviously you don't feel comfortable answering the question, and I'm not going to force you to. I feel like it's common sense. Males and females are different.
A trans person can never change what they are biologically. Like, that is not relevant if you actually think that gender is a social construct, because you will be contradicting what you're saying.
But that's what I'm saying. If you say that, so you believe that gender and sex are 2 different things, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
it's not a belief. It's just
so that's, listen, I have an opposite argument with that. I don't believe that, but I'm going to talk about your argument. If they are different from each other, then why do most trans women, I won't say all, but I'll say majority do, take estrogen and testosterone blockers? If that has nothing to do with gender, because that's not a social construct right there, that has to do with female puberty. So if sex and gender are really different from each other, they wouldn't have to take estrogen and they wouldn't have to take testosterone blockers.
Want to change their sex.
But why are they changing their sex if gender and sex are 2 different things? You're saying because for their gender to match their sex.
Okay, I see. I see that where you're coming from, Tina. In order for someone to be trans, they don't have to go into any procedure surgically to be trans.
Okay, so what is the
You know
difference?
that,
So my
right?
question is, what is the difference?
Trans identity is that. It's precisely that, an identity. So someone can be trans and still not have any type of surgeries or don't go through like hormone replacement procedures. You do know that, right?
Okay, so in order to transition, you don't have to do anything, is what you're saying.
Some people
You
do
don't have to
that because
transition
there's
to be
this thing that is.
I'm sorry, what,
you don't
Alyssa?
have to. You don't have to go into like a medical thing to it for someone to be transgender because that's your identity.
Okay, so what is the difference between somebody who wants to change genders and they do not take the
Okay.
normal steps, we'll say the regular steps.
I was going to get on that. Let me tell you.
But can I ask my question before I forget?
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So what is the difference between a person who deems themselves as trans, who does not take any hormones and no surgeries, etc., and what's the difference between them and someone who does, let's say, take estrogen, testosterone blocker, and get surgeries? What is the difference?
That one is surgery. One would be like.
Sorry.
So I was gonna say, like, if you have a trans woman who isn't interested in medically transitioning, she would have a male body, but she would still be a woman. If you have a trans woman that is interested in medically transitioning, she would have a female body, but also still be a woman. They're two types of women, and they have two different types of lines of biology.
So now, would you call the one who had the surgery
Tina, let me
female?
answer to the question before I forget. There is this thing that I think that you may have heard of, that it's gender dysphoria. Some people get really dysphoric by having like parts of their body that don't directly correlate with their gender. There are some people that are okay with that. And also, we need to acknowledge that not everybody has the money to go through a transition. Not everybody can go through a transition because it is really difficult. It is a medical procedure, at last. So not everybody has the money. Not everybody wants to do that. And third of all, it's just a matter of like how dysphoric someone can be and like someone's personal preference. But the thing here is that someone being transgender is not like a magic thing that happens from day to night. It's just something that correlates with literally who they are. There are actually studies, if you look for them, where it is knowledgeable that usually when you see a trans person's brain, it identifies with the gender they identify with and not their sex. Like the way they think, the way they see things, the way they perceive the world.
So okay, wait, hold on. So you're saying that their brain does not match their gender.
I'm saying that the way you think.
Wait, no. Answer my question. Don't deflect.
Tina,
answer my question. Answer my question.
And when you grow up,
answer my question. So you're saying you're not letting me talk. I'm letting you talk, and you're not. You're talking over me. You're talking over me.
It's my identity, and it is reflected.
You're talking over me. So you believe in some.
I'm sorry, it's the internet.
In some people that their brain tells them that they are the opposite gender.
So I want to interject for a second. With that, because I do believe it is something in science that as we have more information on it, I think that we don't name it correctly. So when we're talking about gender dysphoria, what we're really talking about is, for a lot of people, is sex dysphoria. And I do think that there should be a distinction between the two, because I do think the way it's named, it is confusing, because they're calling it gender dysphoria, but when you look at the actual symptoms, they are things that are based in sex characteristics. So what they're saying is they are dysphoric about their sex characteristics. That's sex dysphoria, not gender dysphoria. I do disagree with the way it is named currently, but that is just something that I think, it's just that like we're in the formative stages of like having terminology and names for things in this science. So I think that they're hammering out the kinks of it. But I do think that is something that's not named correctly.
So you believe that there's something called sex dysphoria and then gender dysphoria?
Yeah, I could say, yeah. I would think that there is a distinction between the two based off of what you're dysphoric about.
But if,
Yeah,
again, I
actually,
don't understand, because
there are people that
if
go
gender
through
is a social
surgeries
construct,
that
you
trans
shouldn't
people
have
will
no
usually go
dysphoria.
through. I don't know if it's lagging only for me, but I cannot hear you, Tina.
If you're saying that gender dysphoria is different from sex dysphoria, but gender is a social construct and gender is something that we made up, I'm not sure why somebody would feel dysphoric about that. What do you feel dysphoric? When you have gender dysphoria,
because gender is something.
I'm asking a question. You're not letting me talk. 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 You're not letting me talk.
There are different oppressive structures that work with gender, so that's why we need to name it.
Okay, but when somebody
made it into
okay, can I
something.
ask my question? Can I ask my question?
If we were to conceptualize it, like I'm saying, if we recognize that gender dysphoria and sex dysphoria aren't the same thing, then I think the only one that would be medicalized is sex dysphoria, because the only one aspects of sex to things you're changing is sex dysphoria. If you have gender dysphoria and you're just dysphoric about presentation, then you don't need a medical name for that. You literally could just change your presentation and how you want to be referred
so my
to.
question is, my question is
the sex dysphoria, because that does lead to medically transitioning.
Okay, my question is, what do people who suffer from gender dysphoria feel exactly?
Are you talking about the way we currently identify it, or the way I'm talking about in the way that if we were identifying it without the misnomer?
I'm just asking in general.
Okay, so the way that we currently identify it, somebody who has gender dysphoria, it has a disconnect between their sex characteristics and their internal perception of their sex or gender presentation.
But if they do, okay, but in your words, because like you said, that we're gonna say that sex dysphoria and gender dysphoria, we're gonna say they both exist for right now, right? For your statement right now. Okay. So sex dysphoria would be you are uncomfortable with say your genitals and your chest. Now my question is, how would somebody feel gender dysphoria?
Like I said, I think that when we name the sex dysphoria correctly, we won't need to call it we won't need to have the term gender dysphoria.
But let's say that they're both different. Let's say for this argument that there is such thing as sex dysphoria and gender dysphoria, and they are both different. So we know what sex dysphoria is. Now what's gender dysphoria?
Gender dysphoria, so that would be a person not aligning with the societal perceptions of what they should be aligned gender wise, as their so for instance, it would be somebody saying I don't align with the societal role that has been given to me because I am male or female. They would not necessarily need to go through any type of medical transition. They would most likely just change their pronouns or maybe their name or how they present themselves. They wouldn't need to medically transition if they don't feel sex dysphoria.
Tina, there's no way to look trans. You do know that, right?
There's no way to look trans?
There's no way to look trans, exactly.
If that was true, trans people wouldn't transition and look different than what they did.
If that's true, what?
If that's true, then people would not transition to look a different way than they was before. If that statement was true.
That's because that's their own personal decision in what makes them less dysphoric about their own identity.
Wait, hold on. Can I just wait? One of your moderators keeps muting everybody for no reason. I just want to point that out because I was muted for a mad long, so I would check your moderators, to be honest.
I don't know. But I was going to tell you, Tina. Let's say that if I was a trans man, I will change my pronouns for he, him. But at the same time, if I go outside, the world will perceive me as something I'm not. So I myself would choose to change socially and also physically in order to be easier to go around in the world and people not misgendering me.
Okay.
So does that answer the question?
Okay, so now my question is, all right, so we're going to kind of branch off to that, but come back to it. Do you believe that toys have a gender or clothes have a gender?
No.
So then what would make you feel like you're the opposite gender if these have no gender?
that it has nothing to do about them innately having
So
one,
what?
but
Wait.
society
Okay.
still prescribes things to them.
What would if
So
if there's a transgender if there's a transgender woman, right, and she does not want to, she doesn't have, say, sex dysphoria, so now she has gender dysphoria. Why does she have gender dysphoria? What makes her have gender dysphoria? If you say that playing with toys and clothes and makeup does not have a gender, what makes her that gender? Why does she feel that gender?
Like I said,
Okay, so
from a societal level, people attributing certain things to certain genders. And so she would say, like, okay, because of the way I look, there is a disconnect between how I look and how I want people to refer to me.
yeah.
So you feel like it's
And actually,
because of society.
Tina,
Yeah.
of course that there are things that are not related to gender, so like clothes or makeup that you just mentioned. However, even though there are gender stereotypes and gender roles that are harmful, some people do use them to be able to be identified in the world as who they are, which is okay, because like if someone I don't know, let's say wants to wear makeup or leave their hair long or whatever in order to be perceived as who they are, if that helps them, then I see nothing wrong about it.
So why don't you guys work on breaking that stereotype instead of feeding into it and then complaining about it? Why don't you break it?
Do.
No, because you're saying that, if you like this, society is telling me. Wait, no. Because you just said, if society is telling me that I like makeup, I like girl clothes, and I like girl toys, although you believe that there's no gender, society says there is. Now you're feeding into that. And you're supporting that. Why can't you just say, as a little boy, if a little boy likes makeup or a little boy likes, say, more on the side of girly toys, why can't he just be content with saying that he's a boy, but he likes these things, and that is okay?
He can do that.
You're saying,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
but you're saying because they like, you're saying because they like certain things.
Gender things.
You don't let me talk. You honestly don't let me talk.
Okay, go ahead.
You just said because society deems it acceptable that we say this is for girls and this is for boys, right?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying that may be the reason why someone on a societal level chooses to change the way they are societally labeled. I'm saying for that individual person, that may be why they would want to change their societal label.
But my question is, why are you guys not working? Why shouldn't we break that stereotype?
We are trying to do that. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know a trans person who believes in upholding gender stereotypes, because most of us have been negatively impacted by them. Like, cisgender people who fight tooth and nail, like literally the whole Facebook argument people were having over whether or not a boy can have a cooking set. Like, we're not the ones that are trying to enforce gender stereotype.
But you're enabling it because you're saying. But you're enabling it because you're saying, "Hey, if you like all this stuff, that means you're transgender." Instead of just saying, "Okay, you are who you are and you like what you like, and that's okay." We're not going to confuse you. We're calling you the opposite gender.
Tina, if you want to actually have a conversation, let me answer you, because then I don't want to interrupt you. It's okay. Is it okay if I understand, if I answer the question?
Go ahead.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So, you're not the first person that have asked this. This is not like a normal or original question that we've heard over time. So, actually, there are children that do like more like girly things, let's say. Like, they like Barbies instead of whatever. And that's okay. They can still be boys. And actually, if you didn't know, trans people are already speaking about it. How? By not trying to fit into what people think transgender means. There are a bunch of creators actually here on TikTok that happen to be trans, and the way they express their gender is different, because also it is important for me to say that gender expression is a whole different thing, because someone can be a woman and be more masculine in the way they present themselves and stuff, right? So that's what's going on. It's not reinforcing gender stereotypes, but using them in your favor in order to be perceived as what society wants you not to be. Did I answer the question?
No, because I still feel like you guys are saying they're transgender because they like these things, and that's why we're going to tell them that they're transgender instead of saying that
I'm
they're
not saying
comfortable
that
with who they
because
are,
like
and
certain things. I'm not saying it because they like certain things. I'm telling you that there are already transgender people that don't fit into these ideas of what transgender means, and they still are feminine or masculine or whatever.
but
even
feminine
though
and
it may or not
masculine
fit
have
with their
nothing to
gender.
do with
Because their
that.
gender is there are different things, Tina. There are different things. One is the way you express your gender, and that is different for every cis or trans person. You can be a cis woman and still be a little bit masculine or a little bit more feminine.
But being feminine and masculine have nothing to do with that, because there could be a feminine man and a masculine woman, and they're still comfortable with calling themselves a woman or a man, but they're just not the stereotypical, say, man or a woman.
Right, that's the whole point. That's what I'm saying. Like, trans people are not the ones pushing stereotypes on people. Cis people are the ones doing that. Somebody in the comments said, well, what is womanhood? Yeah. Whatever the regional understanding or socially, whatever the social construct of womanhood is, if the person is identifying with that, it's going to be localized to different areas. So, for instance, the things that I attach to womanhood are not going to be the same as a woman in the Middle East attaches to womanhood. And it's going to be different expectations of what womanhood is for every woman from whatever region that they're from. And so identifying with that concept, this like a shared concept of what that thing is womanhood.
And also, cis people are the ones that created this whole idea of gender stereotypes and gender roles and things. So if cis people hadn't done that in the first place, transgender people nowadays wouldn't have the need to do that in order to be validated of their own identity.
Because they agreed of all the stereotypes and all that as a society, and we are the majority.
But it's not even like how I was saying, like, it's not even about them agreeing to it. Like, it literally, for a lot of people, it was forced upon them by colonization and by Christianity. It's not even, like I said, like, there were lots of cultures where trans people existed, and some people medically transitioned for what they had back then. There's evidence of people altering their bodies to have different sex characteristics and across different civilizations. But then they also had groups of people people altering their bodies to have different sex characteristics and across different civilizations. But then they also had groups of people that did have different categories for different gender presentation, other than just male or female. Like, this was a thing.
So what is there besides male and female?
Yeah.
So there's male, there's female, there's non-binary.
But non-binary is not a sex. It's not a sex. That's a gender. Male and female is a sex. Besides intersex, female and male, what other sex is there?
Other than there was man and woman.
No, like male and female. What male and female is sex.
Other
so
than male
that
and female, there would be intersex people. So intersex people would be a big category, because there's
besides that, I said besides. So you think that there's male, female, and intersex, which I agree. Is that what you're saying for the sex characteristics?
Yes. So it's a bimodal distribution. It's like a line. There's 2 points on the line where most people cluster around, but you can fall anywhere on those points on the line. Ooh.
Tina, you do know that the term cis and trans was not invented by the LGBTQ community. You do know that, right?
Cis is a Latin prefix.
Cis and trans was not invented by us. It wasn't. It truly wasn't. And this is something that you learn in high school or in middle school. That there are cells that happen.
I don't know what high school you went to, but I certainly did not learn all of the stuff that kids are learning today. I learned regular shit like reading and algebra.
Well, you didn't have chemistry?
And that's part of the problem, is that we weren't educated on the vast spectrum of human identity.
But you can't be educated on something that you're not sure. So, okay, wait. So let me ask you a question.
Let me finish.
Wait. I have one question. How many genders are there?
Okay.
How many genders are there?
I cannot know.
I mean, it's not a set amount of gender. It's just like there's not a set amount of currency.
So how are we supposed to
currency? You can also
We're not talking about currency. Those are two different topics. Those are two different things.
They're really not, though. That's
it is.
It's literally just a way of
So
categorizing things that
if you cannot tell me how many genders there are, you cannot teach about it.
Tina, as gender is a social
Okay, can you
construct.
tell me
It's
how many
something-
currencies there are?
I don't know. If you Google it, it'll tell you.
Okay, I'll
Maybe,
Google how many
possibly.
genders are.
So that's what I'm saying.
But
If I can
it's
Google it,
still-
I can probably
it's-
find like however
But
many
currency
genders there
exists, and we
currently
can
are.
prove that it exists. We cannot prove that
You
all
can
these
prove
genders
that
exist.
genders exist.
How are you going to prove that all these genders exist when you can't even name these genders? And you can't even tell me how many there are.
Okay, I mean, if you want me to name genders, I can name genders.
So-
there's two
No, I
stereotypes.
want
There
I
are
want
the
to I want to know how many
there are,
altogether, how many
non-binary
genders
genders.
altogether, how many genders altogether, an exact
I don't
number.
know that just off the top of my head. I don't know what the number is, but that doesn't mean that it's not.
But you
a
said
number
there's
that we
multiple
currently have.
genders. There's infinity amount of genders, and now you're
Tina,
saying that I can't
Tina,
count.
You cannot be mad about us interrupting you when you are talking over her.
I know
You ask
you're
questions
not
and then
talking
don't
with,
let us
with
answer.
I know you're not
You
talking
ask
with
us a
somebody cutting you
question
off.
and then don't give us time to answer and start interrupting us.
I
So,
know
like
you're
I
not
said,
talking. Okay,
if
I'm not
I-
gonna talk to you for right now because I feel like violating, and I'm gonna stop myself. So I'm just gonna talk to Alyssa for now.
Why violating? Violating what?
Because you just interrupted me this whole live that we've been on for what, almost 40 minutes maybe? And you've been interrupting me
haven't
this whole time
interrupted
and
you.
now have the balls to be
She
talking
really
about
has.
interrupting.
I really
She
haven't
really
interrupted
hasn't.
you.
She
I have
explained
asked
what-
you. Yeah, I have
She's
asked you
explained
if
that
I
there's
can
an
answer.
internet
You asked me that
It's
one
happening.
time. One
Yeah,
time.
You don't give us time to answer your questions, and you start talking and talking and talking.
No,
and
because
give us time
I
to
start
answer.
talking. Now I'm interrupting you, yes. But I start talking and you start talking over me and I be quiet. So now go ahead. Say what
Okay,
you have to
then
say.
Okay, then say, like, this is the time to answer, or I'm done. Because then you just keep going and then don't give us time to answer.
I don't hear a question.
You cannot give
I don't hear a
15 questions
question.
at a time. You're interrupting me right now. You cannot give 15 questions at a time and then expect only 6 seconds of an answer.
Still nothing. Go ahead.
So, as
Okay.
I was saying, just like currency is something that we create the concept of, and in theory, there could be an infinite amount of currencies that we could create. It is similar to that there could be an infinite amount of genders that we create. However, there is most likely a definite number that we currently have and use in societies. I just don't know what the total number of it is, just like I don't know the total number of currencies.
Yeah,
That
and
doesn't make them
also,
less real.
can I answer?
Go for it.
Okay, yeah, and also gender is a spectrum, so it can evolve over time. Actually, I just googled it, and there are different types of numbers for how many genders there are, as it is a spectrum. Some sites there are 64, some sites say there's 58, because that is like something that correlates with someone's identity, and it has evolved over time, so we cannot say exactly how many genders are there. And like something that I wanted to get on about with what I said about like high school and trans and cis not being invented by the LGBT community. I didn't mean that in high school we were talking specifically about trans people. We were just in biology class being explained about cells. Literal cells around the world, not human being cells, just cells that happen to have to be trans or cis. Being cis is that as a person means that you correlate your identity with the sex you were assigned at birth. And if you are trans, it means that you have a different identity to the sex that you were assigned at birth. Now, this is not only like a human thing. This actually also happens with a lot of different species, like for example, frogs and fishes and snakes and lizards. And if you don't believe me, you can just Google it. That is something that happens. We're not the only species to do this. So being trans and cis is not something invented by the LGBTQ community. It is something that exists over.
Are you done? Because you got cut off like
if a
twice.
cell- can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So if a cell is either trans or cis, that cell doesn't mean that they are not what they used to be. It's just that they are what they are, and that happened, and so be it. Okay? Now, I'll give you time to answer.
So you say in biology, you said biology class, right?
Yeah.
Cis and trans have nothing to do with biology.
Actually, they do. You didn't go to high school?
Did you? Biology has to do with
college.
sex, not your gender, right? Since they're two different things.
It can be both. You can be transsexual. You
Now
can
it can be
also
both.
be cissex.
Oh, so now it can be both. Now everything could be both. All of a sudden, now when it fits your narrative, now it can be both.
Tina. Transgender is a word that has to do with gender. Transsexual is another word that also has to do with sex. Those are two, like, they both are. Trans is the prefix, but the suffix is what you have to pay attention to. So I'm saying, just like there's transgender that has to do with gender, you have transsexual that has to do with sex.
In biology, we learned about males and females, which had to do with sex. We did not learn about all these genders.
I'm talking about cells.
I'm talking. See, and you're interrupting.
When you learn about mitosis, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to forget. When you talk about mitosis and meiosis and those kind of things that you learn in biology, there's also the term for trans and cis in biology when you're talking about cells. You do remember when you were in high school when you were taught about mitosis and the way cells expand or get together, right?
Go on.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. The trans and cis is not something that people simply invented. It is something that exists in a lot of different contexts. Therefore, why I'm telling you the example of me in biology class.
Because cis is a Latin prefix and not a biology term. That's why. So we don't use that in biology.
You didn't realize like 90% of the words that we use in science have some type of like Latin prefix to them. Like what?
We didn't learn, again, we didn't learn about gender, right? Like we're talking about cisgender. We didn't learn about that because we use the words male and female. That's what I'm saying.
You do realize just because you didn't learn about it doesn't mean it's not a thing. Like,
but I didn't say it's not a thing. But wait, I didn't say that. Did those words come out of my mouth? Did I say that?
You're making it seem like
no. Not what I'm making it seem like. No, you're assuming. You're assuming and you're speculating. I did not say that. What I said is in biology and anatomy, we talk about the sex, so we don't use those words. I don't know how they do it in class now, but when I was in high school, we used male and female. Like male gametes and female gametes, right?
Just explain to you that they use the word cis and trans when they're talking about cells as well. And that probably comes from the fact that, like, you live in a Latin American country, so it makes sense that those words...
But we're not talking about cells, we're talking about humans, though. We're talking about humans who are already here. That's what cis I'm talking about. I'm not talking about cells. I'm staying on topic with males and females. Y'all are going to cells and all this other stuff. You're deflecting from the topic.
Tina, may I answer?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I know that we're talking about human beings right now, and actually human beings are a bunch of cells together. You do know that, right?
I do understand that.
We are made of cells and atoms. That's what makes a human a human.
All right, so wait, hold on.
I'm not done.
Go ahead, finish.
I'm not done. The answer that okay? What? Did it got cut off?
I don't know what happened.
Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna keep on talking.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. The only thing that you learn on biology class is not only like the reproductive system or things like that. You do learn about other types of things like photosynthesis and plants and animals and other types of things. And what I'm trying to to explain with this is just an example that it is something that happens overall in the world in other types of things. Therefore, humans are also subjected to that because humans are made up of cells.
Okay, so I understand that humans are cells, so you agree with that. So now I'm just gonna kind of branch off from that with, do you think abortion is killing a person? Since that is cells, like you said.
I think so. I do believe that abortion is killing something, but I think it's justified. I think that like we have to like get over this idea that killing something means it's inherently bad. You are killing something to preserve your autonomy. I think that it justified killing. Just like if somebody's attacking you, you're allowed to use even deadly force to defend yourself.
Okay, so Paulina, what do you think?
Okay, so you do know that every single day and year we completely new cells in our body, right? That doesn't mean that I kill 100 Paulinas before me. That doesn't mean that I kill 1,000 Paulinas before me. So with you bringing up the topic on abortion, actually in abortion I am pro-choice and I advocate for that. So the reason why there's a difference in between those cells being cells and the other ones not being human is what makes a human is that cells have a specific component to make humans what they are, not like in their pre-stage of humanity.
Like basically viability, the ability to be able to live on its own.
Yeah.
Okay, move forward from that because I feel like we're getting nowhere with that. Do you believe that sexuality is based on gender?
No.
What do you think sexuality is based on?
Sexuality is just based on what you prefer as a human being.
So
I think he's saying like, is sexuality based in like what gender you're attracted to? I think that's what she's trying to say.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. Do you think sexuality is based on somebody's gender? Like, say, if I like a woman and I would be a lesbian.
Okay, I understand. Okay. So what you mean is like someone, like for example, if I'm a woman, like directly, if I'm attracted to a woman for being like identified with that gender. Yeah. Is that what you're asking? Well, that just depends on who you wanna like and love.
I would say like, I think that sexuality is more about presentation than anything. Because
so how you physically present yourself.
There's different aspects that people can be attracted to, whether it's the sexual characteristics you're attracted to, or there may be certain mannerisms you're attracted to, or there may be aesthetic things you're attracted to. Like, I think sexuality is based on presentation. That I think that our current understanding of like straight, gay, bisexual, I think it's kind of reductive because even those concepts are like concepts that come from colonization, whereas the people who like before, we never tried to like put people in these like really strict boxes. We just understood that we were attracted to certain types of presentation. So I think that that's like a more holistic way of explaining everything. But I think that the way we explain it now is kind of reductive.
All right, so I can agree. I can agree with that. Yeah, hold on. Somebody made a comment that I did agree with. Hold on. Yeah, sexuality is based on multiple things.
In multiple what?
Things. Somebody made a comment, I just agreed with it. That sexuality is based on multiple things.
Hey pal, there's something else I'd like to talk to you as well. Is there any did you have anything that you wanted to add? Like if you had something else that you wanted to add.
I just want to add like a one last thing. Like trans people have always been trans. They just happen to be presented as something else before. So when there is like a trans woman, we don't say like, oh, when you were a man. No, when you were presenting as a man, you were always that. Mm-hmm. And the same happens with like trans men and vice versa. So I wanted to get on that and like.
With that, I'm sorry. Are you done?
No, I'm not done because I'm just about to disconnect. Then when I disconnect, then you can answer it to me.
Okay.
So with that, I just wanted to say that gender is sure a social construct, and there are different types of problems that happen with being trans. Actually, the life expectancy of a trans person is of 29, 35 years old, which is really problematic, and like we need to take that into account, like. Just don't let something that struggles with someone like, oh, you're not a man, you're not a woman, or like let that go and just let people identify as who they want to identify, and let those people don't rely on hatred. Read more about gender, read more about sex, and actually instead of just questioning like what is this or what is that, Just look at the history, look at the fact, look at the people, because trans people are so much more than than their transition.
I've never
There
said
are
that they
people with
weren't. I've never said
creativity
that
and-
that's the only thing that they have.
I'm not saying to you. I'm saying it overall to the people listening. I'm not saying it to like Tina specifically. But like trans people are so much more than their transition. They have thoughts, they have abilities, they have different types of virtues. So don't only close into those little boxes of like, oh, that's what they are and that's it. They are human beings with feelings and human rights. And people sometimes forget that. Well, that'd be all for me. And thank you, Alisa, for having me on.
Thank you. Yes,
And
always.
thank you, Tina, for listening.
Okay, wait, Alyssa, can I ask you something before you
Bye.
bring somebody else on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna have staff come in just a bit.
Okay, wait.
Thank you, pal.
She had stated that they have always been a woman, and it is not appropriate to say when they were a man. You'd say when they were presenting as a man.
Yeah.
Would it be
I would agree
appropriate
with
to say as you presenting as a woman right now, since you presented as both?
I mean, I don't think that would be like, okay, let me think about what you're saying. So I don't think that's one where it works both ways, only because the reason why that we word it that way is because from a societal level, people were looking and saying, okay, this is a man. But in reality, the person was a woman. So to say that they're presenting, I mean, like sometimes it depends on what the context is. Sometimes you can say like, yeah, like I'm, sometimes trans people use it. So for instance, like there have been times where, especially when I was early into transitioning, where there would be some days where I would present with the intention to be read as female. And there were some days where I was not presenting in a way to be read as female for like safety reasons. So yeah, you could say in some cases, you could say like, okay, the person is presenting as a woman, but they're also a woman. So it's kind of weird to just use, like, you wouldn't use that just in general because they are a woman, but there could be certain specific instances where a person has varied their like presentation, and you could be saying like, yeah, they're presenting as a woman. But it would just be weird to just use that as like like, I mean, by the same logic, I could say, well, you're presenting as a woman now, Tina. Like, yeah, she presents as a woman because you're a woman. Like that.
Okay.
So, I joined a little bit late, but I just want to understand. I don't really understand your, like, what is your perspective? Like, I don't understand. Do you believe trans people? Like, what do you think about trans people as a whole? Like, I just don't understand like where you're arguing from.
People with this question. Okay, you guys, or I'm not gonna say you guys, I'm going to say trans people want to be understood, right? Because maybe that wasn't the societal norm to begin with, right? So we're learning new things.
I mean, it was until colonization happened, but
okay, well, in
I
our
that, whatever. It just
Yes.
in modern society, yeah, trans
Yes.
people weren't like normalized until recently. Yeah, sure.
yes, they were the outcast, and we didn't understand them, etc. Right now, in almost 2022, we're understanding them, and we're trying to get where they're coming from, etc. Right? Okay. So my thing is, why do they want to be understood, and I completely get that. But in the process of trying to understand someone, you do have to ask questions and challenge things. And when people ask questions and when people challenge an idea with them, they get offended and just deem it as transphobic or homophobic.
No. That can be applied to some people. That can
Oh,
be
wait,
applied to
someone
people
said,
who are
yeah, wait, hold on, let me
arguing-
correct myself. We are in 2022, my fault. Go ahead.
So that would be arguing from the perception of somebody who's actively trying to understand. There's a difference. There's a difference between that and confirmation bias, which is what a lot of people use as confirmation bias. You're arguing the presupposed conclusion, and you're saying, this is what I believe, and you're arguing, and it's like we see that a lot, like in terms of like literally everything, race relations, whatever the hell you want to call it. Literally, majority of people are not capable of changing their mind very easily. And we have arguments like that. It's not based on them trying to learn for the most part. It's based on them arguing to try to make the other person more wrong. It's like you're applying this like.
But I'm not
good
saying. But
faith
wait.
to
But you
everybody
see,
who
you're
has
confusing
good
it. You're
faith to
confusing
everybody
it.
who argues this point.
Because I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong, and I'm not saying somebody else is right or wrong. I'm just challenging an idea and asking questions. If you take it as I'm right or I'm wrong, then that's up to you, and that's completely subjective. But as for me, I'm not saying that. I'm just simply asking questions.
So what's your take, though? Like, what is your perspective? That's what I'm trying to asking. What is your perspective?
I don't have a specific perspective because this is not what we were talking about to begin with.
What were you talking about to begin with, then?
I cannot sum that up. We've been on live for like, what, an hour?
I'm asking, like, okay, what is your perspective? Because you're saying, like, you're arguing. You're not arguing. You're trying to debate to learn more, right? For that, you have to have an original perspective. What is your current perspective on, like, a trans matter? Do you believe trans women are women? Or do you believe trans men are men? Like, I'm just trying to figure out where you're coming from. Because I don't understand.
Sex and gender are different. That's what most people say from the people that I've debated, most of them. And my thing is, I don't believe that. And
You don't believe sex and gender are separate?
Okay, wait, hold on. Because I'm not going to backtrack because I've already discussed that with Paulina. I think her name was. If I'm getting it wrong, sorry.
Okay, but I'm not Paulina, though.
Okay, but I was on. Okay, but I was on live for over an hour now, almost 2 hours. So I'm not going to repeat myself with you. If you want to listen, if you want to set another day and I will repeat everything that I have to say, I will do that. But I'm not repeating myself right now, and I'm not going in reverse.
Okay, but it's pretty simple. I'm not gonna stay on this point too long because it's not a point you can actually argue.
Because it's 1:00 in the morning where I'm at.
Gender and sex are separable. It's scientifically.
But I've literally discussed this for an hour. That's my thing. I'm not trying to backtrack on what I'm saying.
There's nothing to discuss.
If you came in late,
there's nothing to discuss. If you believe in the scientific method, you believe in science, then you agree that gender and sex are separable. It's not a discussion thing.
Like I said, if gender and sex are two different things, then a trans woman would not need estrogen and testosterone blockers to change her body into a female body. That is my point. Point blank. Period.